Hi,
Thank
all.
you.
Welcome to the Riot Lunch and Learn series, the place where we spotlight Riot's sponsors and partners. My name is Natalie Ballard. I'm the Events and Operations Manager for Riot. Just a couple quick reminders before we get started. This event is being recorded and will be posted to Riot's YouTube channel and uploaded to the meetup page where you registered for this event. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, please place them in the chat. We will be monitoring the chat and we'll read the questions aloud throughout the presentation. Questions are read aloud for those watching the presentation at a later date. Finally, please keep yourself muted throughout the event to help mitigate background noise. Today, we have Bill Manning from JFrog to discuss IoT development security. Bill, I'll turn it over to you.
Hey there. Well, very nice to meet everybody. Thank you all for attending this. I'm very happy. Thank you, Natalie, so much for inviting me to be a part of this. And I'm super excited to talk to you guys today. Today, we'll talk about IoT security, and I'll talk a little bit about who we are, JFrog, in case you don't know who we are. And I'll talk about our product Connect, which is our IoT platform. And you'll hear me make some funny comments about my feelings about the terminology of IoT, right? Because it's now become just everything, right? It's not just like what's it's amazing the life that it's taken on its own. And the thing is that JFrog, we actually have been in the game for a while. Actually, we do have a lot of companies out there. We have almost 7,000 companies that use our platform globally. We're like the biggest little company you've never heard of. And if you know anything about JFrog, I mean, the main thing about us is, of course, our Artifactory product, but we're much more than that. And Connect is actually, an obvious example of that. Who am I, by the way? And I'm William Manning, or Bill Manning. I'm one of the solution architects and also solution engineering manager here at JFrog. I've been with the company for a little bit over 6 years. If you want to follow us on Twitter, it's of course JFrog, and mine's just simply William Manning. A little bit about my background too, and just so you know about when we talk about IoT. Actually, the next slide is partially the addenda, and all the pictures on the right-hand side go back to the days when when I actually had a company that we started called 4Home. It was acquired by Motorola and then Google. As part of that, they wanted our patents. We were actually called the Connected Home Services at the time, but there was no term IoT. We actually had a live launch with things like Verizon at Home. They utilized our platform. We actually built our own services around it. The idea was unifying the different protocol layers, such as Zigbee, Z-Wave, LAN, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, obviously. And we created a platform that would actually interpret all those different types of connectors that we had to the various technologies and unify them into a single entity called FCML, Fluid Communication Meta Language. It was a great platform. We sold it off. I went on to do other things such as venture capital work and helping startups. I had a couple other startups in the meantime and things like that. But we started back in 2006. Doing this, we won 5 CES awards for best product and best of innovation and things like best engineering. So I've got a very vast background in this subject. Now, what we're going to talk about today is the world of IoT really quick. What is JFrog Connect, Artifactory, and Connect? Because seriously, one of the major factors is that, with our Connect platform, you can use it independently on its own. But in addition to that, if you're an Artifactory user, or if you'd like to be an Artifactory user, it's a way to manage your software supply chain with our X-Ray product too, which is our security licensing and vulnerability scanning tool that allows you to make sure that all those libraries you're using, because it's the biggest threat right now, those third-party transit dependencies and things that you might utilize, your Docker container images that you might run on devices. I always have to laugh at that now Docker is the platform for a lot of device network, to instantiate services. When I started way back when, none of that existed. And then we started using OSGI, which is the Open Source Gateway Initiative framework, to actually deploy services to devices that would allow them to do things like energy management, home monitoring, et cetera. And then we'll also talk about how you can utilize the platform itself, Connect, and also to Artifactory and Connect together, and really have an end-to-end experience, from your developer to your device. And when we do that, we'll talk about things like software supply chain and why that's important and how you can protect yourself as an organization. So, we all know the headlines. We see them all the time. We know all the numbers. You guys are here for a reason. I'm very passionate about the IoT space itself. For myself personally, like my entire home, much to my wife's chagrin, is the idea that my whole house is connected. I mean, I've been doing that for forever. Everything from Alexa to Google to now I actually use like Homebridge at my house, so that I can use my iPhone and use Siri for all that kind of stuff. And of course, Siri just woke up when I said that. And when we talk about these things, there's a lot of interest, a lot of reasons. It's been a huge growth opportunity. IoT has now become ubiquitous with our lives, right? I mean, in the past, it was always like, the Jetsons' Future Home and all this kind of stuff. And then, really, I mean, if anything, Amazon really pushed it forward. If you really think about it, Alexa and the ability to have devices work with Alexa really pushed the industry to the point where it became, acceptable by the communities and the world at large. We went from being a nerd thing like my friends and I, out to where my mom and dad, you walk in the house now and they talk to Alexa and all their lights go on. Yeah, don't get me wrong, I helped them set it up, right? But at the same time, it's the same kind of idea. So when we talk about all these millions and millions of devices, one of the things that we wanted to make sure is, we are the software supply chain platform, right? Our platform, like I said, over 7,000 customers use us for all the software they create. We maintain and manage the third-party transit dependencies they built, use for their software that makes up 85 to 90% of everyone's software. We make sure that there's nothing nefarious because supply chain attacks are real. Actually, it's one of the biggest threats to software development to this day. We also manage the builds of these companies too. And we had a lot of companies out there that were looking at the IoT space, and we decided to acquire a company called Upswift. And now Upswift was an amazingly simple platform. We integrated it quickly. Those guys are absolutely amazing. I love the whole team. And what they've done is they've actually gone ahead and looked at the challenges and came up with a platform that really kind of helps in this case, right? To, work on things like product recalls, right? So in other words, being able to provide like things like remote diagnostics and software reliability and constant updates and faster updates and device monitoring and whatnot. It's a full featured MDM, right? It's a full featured device manager. And the thing is that when we look at this, the things that you'll be able to do when you utilize our Connect platform is things like software updates, of course, right? We are the liquid software company. We are the software supply chain company, right, with security. And the idea here is there has to be an easy way to update those devices. And if something does go wrong, an easy way to roll them back. Troubleshooting is another one too. We'll show you today on how, if you want to establish a device, and also too, I'll talk about things like how do you start with an individual device, how you actually can go ahead and do it at scale. And then if you're using like Yocto as your actually image base for your, say, the devices that you're using, how you can actually bake our client into it. Now, one of the nice features of this is that, and this actually, it's funny, is that my company back in 2006, we came up with this idea of call home for devices. So you wouldn't have to mess around with firewalls. The device actually calls from the outbound. Calls outbound from from wherever it's located, whether it's industrial IoT, the home, vehicles. I mean, everything now is IoT, right? It's become such a big, crazy catch-all. Anyway, but anything that's connected and has that kind of thing is what we manage. Also monitoring, right? You want to make sure those devices are online. Everything from how are they performing in terms of CPU usage? Is there maybe a possible race condition because the memory seems to be going all out of whack? And then the last part of it is how do you actually also make sure that those devices are safe, right? So you can even do things like firewall monitoring on the device if you have a firewall enabled, and if you don't, you can actually go ahead and enable one and be notified at any time. So when we look at the way the actual JFrog Connect works is that there's a simple agent. Now, the agent that we created right now only works with Linux-based devices, just so everybody is aware, right? We don't do the Windows CE devices. We don't do any of those right now. They might be coming in the future, but the thing is that most devices in the market are actually some sort of Linux-based, right? Whether it's ARM-based, whether it's Intel-based. By the way, our little client has a very, very tiny footprint. I think it's like 4 megabytes, and then in total, when it actually operates, it's just under 7 or 8 megabytes when it's in the runtime. I think we're probably working on actually making that maybe even a little smaller very soon. It can be multi-tenant, by the way. And like I said, we made this thing so easy to use that everybody I've talked to so far is like, okay, this is a pretty powerful, simple, easy platform that I can get behind. Now, the thing is that also, remember, even though these are edge level devices, right? And the thing is that we believe heavily in also the model of, it being, the end, right? This is like the shift right mentality. If you look at the software development lifecycle, we have shift right, shift left, I mean, where the developer is, where you can, I'm going to show you some cool things you can do to kind of protect yourself, and then all the way to ship right. And ship right in this case happens to be getting those devices updated wherever they are, being able to do it in mass, you know, various things like that. But they're really just the edge of what we do as a platform. And the thing is that, you know, we're there, to, like I said, to make sure that we can automate software development and also deployment. We can also manage the end-to-end software supply chain, so from the developer all the way down to the device itself. You can keep track of the versions, especially when you come into things like large fleets. Remediation is very essential if something does go wrong. So we have ways to help you around that. And of course, you want to monitor all the devices in the field, and you can even pull in the information to see how you're doing in total, right? So you can get a really good holistic view of what you have. Now, I'm going to tell you this right now, though. You know, as the number of devices increases, I'm going to show you some little tidbits that you can use our product for, like being able to use, you know, put devices into groups, be able to do things like tagging. Everything I show you today also can be done via our API, you know, when, you know, that's part of it too. So when we go ahead and we look at it, one of the things I also want to talk to you about is Artifactory. If you're not familiar with Artifactory, do me a favor, go look it up. Actually, it's pretty awesome. I'm not only because I work here, because actually I was actually a customer before I actually became part of the company when I was asked to join. And the thing is that Artifactory, you know, is a way to manage the actual software you're deploying, right? Make sure it's safe and secure, that you're not introducing something malicious. Make sure it's compliant. One of the other features of this is that you work in the medical space or a space where you have some sort of regulatory requirement. We also have the ability for you to go in there and actually produce things like software bill of materials. This is becoming very essential, by the way. The software bill of materials stuff actually, it's funny, in software development only became prominent in the industry around 2020 when the Biden administration in the United States actually stated they needed to fix software supply chain, right? It's actually Section 4 of the actual decree that was put out there. Later on, it was actually voted on by Congress and approved. But one of the things that was there is that every company has to have accountability around their software if they're dealing with the government. And it's funny is actually that software bill of materials idea actually started in 2017. It actually started with the FDA, when people realized that medical devices, here we go, IoT again, you know, medical devices out in the field have software, and the software needs to be updated. And sometimes if that software needs to be updated, it can kill people, right? And, you know, let's be honest, right? You don't want your, you know, you don't want the ventilator to have the wrong, you know, piece of firmware that might have some sort of malicious, you know, code in it. And the thing is that, I mean, if you look at it, it's actually a very prominent piece of this. But this is also just to let you know, if your company is building those level of devices where you need to have that kind of regulatory component, our product can actually produce that for you in a very simple manner. Actually, I'll kind of demonstrate that later on. I know it's not part of the talk, but if it does come up, I want to show you, you know, that you can do that even around things like Docker containers. Like I said, we see a lot of devices in the industry these days using Docker images to enable things like devices or monitor processes. We have a lot of the IoT space, a lot of the companies like Bosch and others that utilize our platform for all their software development and also distribution of their software, and a lot more than that. I can't really go into too many. But when we look at what the platform that we have offers, you can see that JFrog Connect is on the far right-hand side. So if we were to treat this like a software development lifecycle, your SDLC, we would go from left to right. So if we go from the left-hand side, we have the idea of curation. And that's the thing is that any software that you build that gets deployed onto your devices, or actually even the services behind those devices, right? A lot of these services have web services that actually fuel it, right? When the device connects, it connects to a web service, it's a way for billing, blah, 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 all the usual stuff you have. So we can actually, for a lot of the companies that we work with, or if you're working as your own independent, or you're working for a corporation, this is a way for you to do what a lot of the other ones are doing, which is maintain the stability and the security of your software from the developer level, right? Being able to actually curate those third-party transitive dependencies before they get into your software. Make sure that the libraries you're using that you utilize to actually do the work that you do as software developers. This gives you the ability to make sure that it's safe, secure, and compliant. On top of that, we offer things like our ID plugin. We have an ID plugin, we have our JFrog CLI, we have a multitude of different tools that you can utilize to make sure. I mean, just to give you an idea, one of the examples I'm going to be showing you today actually happens to be a node application. And here's an example of like a node application, you know, that I'm utilizing here. And if I go in, I can actually show you, that we actually have the ability in here to go in and utilize these, the IDE in this case. Alexa, it looks like I'm having network problems. The reason why I'm a little bit late is I was actually having issues with my my Zoom, and it looks like I'm having greater problems with my computer. But the next phase of this is actually creation. So a lot of you guys use CI tooling, and the CI tooling in this case can also be utilized as a way for you to actually go in and have it as part of it. So the thing is we provide a layer of consistency, right? So in other words, everything that you're utilizing as a developer can be the same things that you're using when you're doing your CI. You create your builds, you store your builds. And another piece of this, as I mentioned, the SDLC, is that you can actually promote the builds that you're going to deploy to your devices through their own development lifecycle, such as dev, QA, staging, and production. And it allows you to have things like you follow 12-factor or multi-tier applications. One of the key features here is the fact that you want to have consistency. So the same things you produce in dev should be the same things you deploy to your device, or the same thing you deploy to your web services. And then the last bit is the consumption bit. And this is where Connect comes in. And actually, we use a combination of different things. Some of our IoT manufacturers, or device manufacturers that we use and things like that, they use our products. We use Connect to actually manage the device, and then use our distribution product, which has these things called edge nodes. And edge nodes are exactly what they sound like. They're lightweight, immutable versions of our Artifactory product that allows you to download, set them up strategically globally and have the software delivered more locally. And don't get me wrong, the Connect product actually does its best actually too. It's a SaaS service, right? And the idea here is it also uses a CDN to distribute it more. But we actually have some customers that want more control. So they go to the extra level, the extra effort, where they want to go in and actually utilize, Artifactory and X-Ray and all our pieces all the way down to the end. So saying that, let's go ahead and we're going to go take a look at distributing and actually how to hook up and utilize Connect. And we're just going to dive right in. I don't want to spend too much time talking about everything else. So let's go ahead. So first of all, when you get started here, the first thing you're going to want to do is actually, you can go to our page here, right? Go to JFrog Connect. I'll put it into the chat here for everybody. There you go. And once you go in here, you can go and say sign in or sign up for a free trial. And once you've actually gone and signed up, so I've already signed up and everything, you'll be presented to a page. And the page you'll get is this, Connect. Now, connect.jfrog.io. And for me, in this case, I'm going to go in. I've already signed up. Don't worry about it. I'm not going to go through the sign up process. But in my case, I use my JFrog email account to validate. This is the one I use. Now I continue. And continue is actually going to bring me ahead to a series of options. So you can either use the account that you might see it independently if you're just signing up for it on your own. You can also sign up with your GitHub, and of course you can sign up with your Google. And then it says continue with JFrog. Now in my example that I'm going to show you today, because I want to show you the power of this, I'm actually going to sign up with JFrog. So what we do is I click on here. And right now you have to have a SaaS account. By the way, if you want to sign up for a free trial, if you want to sign up for a free trial of JFrog Artifactory, then all you have to do is just go to jfrog.com, right? Go in here, and then once you go to JFrog, you just have to go in. You just start a trial. We can actually set up a SaaS instance for you very rapidly and give you the ability to do that. But let's go in and take a look. So this one is going to associate itself to my instance. Now, just so you know, I actually have an instance here called Solange, right? This is my personal instance. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to log into that. It's going to ask me to log in. It's going to redirect me actually back to my, somebody just drew on my screen. It's going to log me back here. I'm actually going to go ahead and log into my JFrog account on my Artifactory instance SaaS. Like I said, this is actually the simple bit. Once you go ahead and you do that, it's going to redirect me back to my Connect dashboard. And once you get into your Connect dashboard, I'm going to show you all the cool things that you can do. So first of all, Connect, like I said, is very powerful, but it's super simple, right? And when you're presented, that first is first of all, your product fleet, right? It'll let you know how many devices you have online, how many devices are offline, and how many are in total. If you have any alerts that are going on currently, we'll talk about alerts too. They're right here. Over here, we have a series of notifications. Like I know yesterday I rebooted my network at home. So it's just letting me know that a device went down. Also, too, we capture what version out of your fleet and what version of it is the application stack, right? When I'll show you how you define an application stack, and it says, oh, what version of the application from my company is running on these devices. And then also, too, device registration, right? How many devices have been registered over time? And on top of that, we also give you the ability to see any of the devices where they are location-wise, if their location is being shared. Now, just so you're aware, all the documentation is actually right here. There's a little link at the top right-hand side, so I'll send this over. But let's talk about device registration, right? So let's go back. So the first thing you're going to want to know is of course, once you're presented with this, you want to have a device, right? You're going to want to register a device. I would recommend if you have a Raspberry Pi or something like that, or if you just want to try it with a simple device. All you simply do for individual devices is click on Register Device. You could choose either a root user or you could choose a regular user. In my case, I use a root user just because of the things that I'm doing. And all you do is you cut and paste and just go to your SSH to the device if it's locally, paste it in and then run it, and then it will actually show up on the device. But some things you can do too is you can add additional flags like the device name. You can create things like groups and others. There's other options too that you can do. Now, this is for devices that you might be running, like one at a time. But if you go into the documentation and you look over to the side here, you can see this is the registered device like I just talked about, how you can simply go ahead and do that. And we give you all the instructions here and what you can do to make sure that it's up and running. You can also go ahead and register devices at scale. So we actually show you in here, if you have a series of images that you're going to go ahead and deploy, this is what we recommend to do on how to install the Connect client. You actually do have a unique token, a unique device ID, you'll point to. And in this case, if you look at the top, if I hit the register device again, you can see there's this big massive GUID here. This one here actually represents my personal instance. You can do that. Or you can actually go ahead and if you're using Yocto, which actually my device, just so you know, the device at my house that I have running, actually I have a couple of devices. This one is actually running a custom Yocto image that I built. I baked it in the client. I grabbed the ID. You can see the ID here that I grabbed, created the user token, baked it in, and so that every time I actually deploy that actual image to a device, and when it comes online, it will automatically connect to the JFrog device service. And now we're talking about devices. I can either click on here to my fleet, or I can actually just go click on the device settings. Now, as you can see in my device settings here, I've got two of my devices. Now, both of these are my test devices that I use regularly. Under the devices, you can see where I can go ahead and create a group. So if I wanted to actually group these devices together, I can actually give it a group name. I can also give a hierarchy. Do I want to be a production set of instances, test instances, and things like that? These are things I can define. Below that, we actually have the initial device state. So if you look here, you can see there's an ID that's a unique ID for every device that's registered with the service. You can actually give it a name. So mine's just got home. I'm using HomeBridge as a way to bridge the gap between all my Alexa and all devices and being able to utilize them with HomeKit, right? Because there's a lot of devices out there that are cheaper than HomeKit devices. And of course, now with Matter coming in, we're going to probably see that become more ubiquitous across services, I'm hoping. You can also see here that there's a device status, remote control, which I'll show you in a second. You can also see when it was last updated, if it was a success or a failure. I haven't updated this device yet. You can also see the application. So what this application is, and when we get to the next part of how to build an update and send it to a device, this lets me know what was deployed to the device and what version it was. I can also monitor services and set what services I want to monitor the most, right? It could be things from like CPU. It could be a custom service that you have running on the device that you want to make sure that it doesn't go up or down. And then, of course, here's my tags. But one of my cool features here is like, here's that HomeBridge server. Now, this is my personal server at home. I'm actually going to go ahead and say I want to connect to it. Say I want to make sure that the device is operational and running, which I see here, but I want to go in and look at something. Right? In most cases, this would be kind of painful. So I can actually just go in here, click on connect. I'm going to hit open. What it's going to do is that this device is already calling outbound to the Connect service. And what we're doing is we're sending actually a key down to that service to validate who we are back to the device. We're establishing a connection. We're actually going to go connect and transfer the key data between the service and the device itself. And then if you look here, it's now opening an encrypted connection between the Connect service and my actual device in my home. And when I hit connect, it's actually going to go ahead, log into my device at home. I could say LSL, if I could type today. There we go. I can actually get into the device and do anything I want. I was able to establish a remote connection extremely efficient and easily. Other things I can do is at any device that I select at this time, right? So I'm actually not going to do that again. It lets me know the device details, like what version, its location, what version of the Connect software, what group it's part of, when it was last seen. It also gives me some basic information on like CPU and disk usage, and even things like I can even monitor things like temperature. One of the biggest problems that we see with a lot of customers is like, I would love to be able to go and pull log files from my devices and do it in an easy way, right? We all know this. We want to be able to diagnose it. We want to be able to pull the logs for records and whatnot. This actually gives you the ability to go in and say, like, I want to view logs and fetch logs, or this one doesn't have any logs available at this time. But you can actually go ahead and designate these. And you can also create different log requests based on application type, right? It could be a front-facing application or whatever you're deploying. You can create certain subject rules based on the actual components that you have. On top of that, it'll let you know if there's any device alerts. You can also go in and add any sort of monitoring that you want, and actually go ahead and say, like, I want to monitor the storage, I want to monitor, maybe something else. It doesn't make a difference. And then at the bottom here is a series of commands. And these series of commands could be things like, get network. So I'm just going to click on here. It's actually going to run this command. It's going to send it to the device. It's actually going to remote control. It's actually going to go ahead and send it to send it down to the device. It's now going to bring me over, and I can actually go ahead and say, I want to go ahead and take a look. And when I take a look, I can actually see, if here's the if config. It's actually going to go ahead, and now it brought back the command I wrote. So if you don't want to shell in, but say you have a series of commands that you might want to do that you've defined as a runtime or something, you could put that in, go ahead, and it'll spit back the output from the device very easily. Let's talk about alerts. So what alerts does, alerts allows you to go in and create things like channels. Do you want to have an email sent to you? You can also go ahead and build out other things. I'm just looking at the time and trying to keep this moving, but this allows you to create alerts based on things like processes or alert types or CPU, right? And then also too, you can do it on either all devices, groups of devices. So if you look here, you can actually go ahead and choose what kind of filter. You can say a specific device, by tag, by application or deployment. Like I can go in here and say I want to do by tag. I want to save it, my tag is test. I'm going to hit next. I can go ahead and say next from here, and I'm going to finish, and I'm going to apply my filters, and then I can go ahead and monitor any resource that I want, such as like, CPU limit. And now when I do this, I can go ahead and say, I'm going to do an email channel and be email notified if the resource goes above 50, and I'm going to create alert. And I have to finish it up because I actually don't have that resource being actually monitored right now. But the idea is simple, right? So I haven't really, I need to go ahead and apply this to all the channels. Once I've applied this to all the channels, then I can go ahead and have these alerts and be monitored and get notifications, right? So if you look here, you can say I've got a triggered alert. It's been finished. It was just letting me know that the device is turned off. Here's the resource, and just let me know the state, right? Actually, this happened in the past 3 days. I think this was the one that happened. Yeah, this one actually happened this morning. But the big thing is that you're probably here for is also to how do you send software updates to the device, right? This is a big one. So let's go ahead and look at the actual updates itself. Now, when I click on updates, the first thing you need to understand is the differences between the types of things that you can do. So first of all, deployments is just letting you know what deployments have been done. So in other words, what software process flows have actually been, actually run, and when they've been run. And if you look here, and if I click on here, I can actually go ahead and see when I ran this job, I get the, I get the deployment ID, I get the actual application I've deployed. It lets me know if there's any comments. It shows me that it's manual because I can actually automate some of these. It also lets me know how many devices were part of this and how many were pending, in case they're offline and you're waiting for them to come online. This will let you know how many are in progress, how many failed, and also to how many succeeded. And this just lets me know exactly what the actual process flow was for these updates. So let's go ahead and let's look at the next piece. So the next thing is actually update flows. These are actually updates that I created. And if I wanted to, I can go ahead and deploy these at any time. Or I can say, I want to go ahead and deploy an application. I'm going to deploy an application called 5. I'll explain what these are in a minute. I can go ahead and select a device. So actually, I'm going to do a specific device. I'm going to go ahead and use my test device. I'm not going to do my home bridge, right? And I'm going to go ahead and say next. And this allows me to go in and let's say I want to go ahead and deploy something. I can create a deployment, run the deployment, and actually that will go ahead. And this is going to go ahead and actually send the actual thing that I'm doing down to my devices in this case. This one is actually going to go ahead and it's going to show that it's in progress. It's connected to both my devices. Well, looks like my home bridge was actually successful. And now this one is pending. And this one is actually now in progress. And then I have successfully deployed a process flow in 2 simple steps, right? So now I know that, these were actually done. If I do this and this will let me know, I had 2 successful deployments of the things that I was doing. Well, what is a process? What is a flow? This is a flow. So what a flow is a nice, easy way for you to go ahead and create these. So I could say, I want to go ahead and say, I want to do a test file update. I'm just going to say in this case, right? And in this case, you see I can reboot the device, afterwards. And also too, there is a rollback functionality, just so you know. So say you want to start off by running a command, right? You might run a command. You simply just drag this run command piece over here. You click on it. You give the command, the action a name. And then you actually just put the command in here, right? This could be something like just as simple as, sudo ls, dash la, right? We're going to say here, I just want a, directory, underscore list, right? Here we go. And in this case, I can say, if I'm expecting a specific exit code, it'll let me do that. And if it fails, you can actually go ahead and create an action on fail, either continue the flow or kill the flow, right? So I'm going to have it continue the flow. Or I can say, if it fails, I want it to roll back to the previous version of what it is, because we actually gather the previous state so we know what it is. But if you don't want to, you can go ahead and say, don't roll back. So let's save that action. What if I have a script that I run, right? So a lot of companies we talk to, they use scripting of some sort, right? It's a lot easier than individual commands and typing them in. So if you click on run script, you can actually go ahead, you can drag and drop the file here, and then, have it go ahead. Again, you want to actually have it deploy, you can say what service you want to do, because in some cases we actually see it where you might have an active service running on the device, and this is a way for you to go in and utilize the script. And of course, we have the simple ability for you to go back in and roll it back. Now, I'm not going to use that one. Say you want to deploy a file, right? This is actually a common one too. This actually, you can go in here. You can actually say, here's the, path of the device. And if you want to, you can actually go ahead and drag and drop it, or go ahead and, and actually, surf to it. I can actually go ahead and try to, if I wanted to, and, find a file that I want to go ahead and, update to the device. I can add as many files as I want. And once again, I can roll back and do the things I want to do. I mean, these are all kind of standard stuff. This will actually deploy to the device. You select a location where it gets deployed to, or you can actually also select it to where it gets executed and run. Now, I mentioned Docker, right? Now, there's 2 options here for Docker, just so you're aware. So for Docker, if you want to deploy a Docker image, it's pretty straightforward. You actually go ahead, once again, you say Docker deploy. By default, just so you know, if you're logged in with your Artifactory account, this will allow you to actually pull a Docker image from Artifactory. And why is that important? Well, the thing is like I said, just to give you an example on this, if I go log in, like any of these, Docker images that I wish to deploy on here, we actually provide probably one of the best Docker repositories on the market. And just to kind of give you an example why, and this is one of my favorite features, is most Docker container examples look like this, right? If I asked you a question as a developer and I said, hey, by the way, what version of the application am I hosting, right? I'm hosting an application in here. It might be a Node front, it might be a backend. What this allows you to do is if you're using Artifactory, I can actually go in here and even show you what version, right? I can also tell you, do you have anything nefarious in the stuff that you're deploying? Software development is key here. And if I click in here, you can actually see that, one of the Docker images I might want to deploy in here has a ton of vulnerabilities, right? These vulnerabilities can affect the way my device operates. It can also make my devices susceptible. It allows me to also go through and say, hey, out of these 275 vulnerabilities, which ones are really truly applicable to the way I'm utilizing it? I give whole talks on this. I'm not going to waste my time diving into a lot of the aspects of this, but just to let you know, yeah, once you've actually connected this, you've actually started using Artifact if you're building your software and your services, there's a lot of things that it provides to you. But the big thing is that you can go ahead and store your Docker images there and what applications you're using and things like that. Or you can even, if you have your own Docker registry, you can go ahead and do that too. And what's nice is that you can actually see, what levels of commands are actually being written to deploy this. You can actually choose, do you want to actually deploy it via Docker Compose, or do you actually want to use a actual Docker image itself? And the container, you just give the container a URI to wherever it is actually located. You can even, tag the image. You can also go ahead and, add in things like additional things like restart, memory, all the usual kind of tags and flags that you would use, with a Docker pull and or Docker run request. You can add those in. And then you can also say, what other Docker, how do you want to execute this Docker image, and also, roll back and do that. So you have options for deploying these containers. On top of that, you can also, some companies, I've actually seen this too, we've added in the option for you to go ahead and actually create, utilize like say a GitHub repo. With the GitHub repo or, whatever your source control is, whatever your VCS is, you can connect it to this. And this gives you the ability to actually go ahead and actually pull directly and deploy whatever it is from the device. It could be an individual file. It could be a complete pull. You actually choose on where you want to do it, and then it will deploy to the device wherever you state it. Like I said, we've made this as simple and as robust as possible. And this even comes down to, like I said, if you are using Artifactory, and by the way, you can also rearrange the order in which things execute. And this allows you to connect, and by default, it will use the same one I'm using to log in. If I wanted to add another account, I can go in here and say I want to add another Artifactory location. Once I do, I give it the repository path. And just so you know, an artifacts repository path in Artifactory is if you go to artifacts or you go to builds or any of those. Actually, we'll go to a build. And if we go back to the build, actually, I'll go back to the one I just showed you. Here's the Docker image. If I wanted to, I can go in here and say, you know what? I want to see this Docker app. I'm going to go ahead and I am going to go to the tree view. My Docker image in this case is 151. Here's my repository path. So I would just simply copy my repository path information. I can add it in here, and then I can say how I want to deploy it. Now, in this case, this just happens to be, I'm using it, this is a Docker image, but it could be actually technically files, deployments, pieces of software, whatever you want. So you have your source and you have your destination. You can add as many as you want. And then lastly, another part of our product line is called Release Bundle. And what a release bundle is it's a way to actually have a digitally signed immutable release of combined things, right? So say you're deploying 4 or 5 Docker images in a Helm chart to do it because you're running Kubernetes on the device. It sounds crazy, but I've actually seen a lot of infotainment systems that are using Kubernetes behind the scenes because it allows them to scale where it needs to scale. It's actually, there's a couple of these that are coming out that are even more powerful. But the idea is that a release bundle is actually a way for you to combine services. So in Artifactory land, in our JFrog land, a release bundle is a way for you to go ahead and take combined elements, right? So I can go in here and look at any of this, things that I'm building at this time, and I can see that I have a bunch of I have a bunch of Docker images I want to deploy. I also have a catalog file that I want to go ahead and deploy, right? So I can combine them together and treat them as a digitally signed immutable release. And then I can go ahead and pull that from Artifactory, give it a version number, give it its destination, custom paths or Docker Compose, right? Because one of the things is I can deploy Docker images en masse, and this allows me to do it more rapidly. Another piece of this too is that while we're doing this is of course the log files. This really, and here's the thing is like, we said this is more of a workshop, but if you're not signed up for Connect, I'm giving you the overview because I want you guys to dive in and do this. And the thing is that if you need any help, I said, you can reach out. I want to start more of a dialogue with the community, but this is a way for everybody to kind of, work with it. And here's the thing is that, one of the sections I love, and I love this too, and this was always one of my things that I hated in the past with working with devices is, how do I go ahead and say, grab a log file from a device without having to do a lot of arduous work? Well, in this case, I can go ahead and say, choose a device. I could say what log file it is that I want to pull. I hit fetch. It will go ahead to that device and actually, pull something in. It allows me to pull that the file folder or whatever from that so that I can download it quickly and more rapidly. As I said before, we also have the control technology, right? So this actually allows me to go ahead and, connect to a device like I did before, right? I can go ahead and create this remote session and, do everything that I want to do with that device and connect to it. I can also do other levels of access control too, just so you're aware. So you can either do remote SSH like I have here. You can even do things like if I wanted to go ahead and set up like a remote VNC, right? How to actually do remote VNC to the device itself. We have instructions for things like that. You can even go ahead and use like remote webhooks on that. I can also go ahead and actually even gather together, like I said, those devices, I have the list of commands that I can send to a device. Well, that's what this does here, right? I can actually go ahead and create a series of commands, right? So I can even create my own commands, or I can even go ahead and use standard commands as this. And this allows me to come up more rapidly. Oh, I hear somebody. Somebody have a question? Okay, but this allows me to send remote commands to pull back as much information as I possibly can. The other thing too is what I get into is monitoring. Like I said, we did start a little late, so I'm sorry about that. And then, we only have about 12 minutes left, but I want to be able to show you like this is really powerful. All the cool things that you can do, such as also being able to go ahead and also remote monitor any of the instances you have in mass or filtered by groups or types or tags. Right? How are all the things I'm using? How are they actually, operating over time? Right? What kind of information can I get out of that to see how I'm running in terms of resources? I can also go ahead and monitor things like processes. And when I monitor processes, what's great is this allows me to go in and create alert structures based on those processes, right? So this allows me to say, I want to go in and I want to monitor this process on all devices or specific devices. And then I can go ahead and, get alerts or create update flows even, like say I want to do a rollback or things like that. Lastly, over here, the other thing I can also go ahead and do, this is the other part, is I can also do data monitoring, right? So I can monitor specific either processes or even devices, or I can even go ahead and create specific values where I might want to like instantiate a update to a device to say, like dump the cache or things like that, or send an alert to say, okay, this device's runtime is executing way too fast. I should go in now and actually, maybe, restart it or whatever. This gives you the ability to kind of build those kind of structures around it. And then lastly, we talked about security. And one of the cool things about the security is that you can also go in and do things like firewall, right? And we're going to have some other stuff coming very soon. But the idea here is that you can actually go ahead and create firewall rules. And then based on those firewall rules, you can actually also kick off other processes that you might have there. So when it comes down to it, it's very simple for everybody to actually go ahead and utilize, JFrog, be able to use Artifactory and our other products because it's very simple and easy to use. And we try to make it, like I said, as simple as possible. I'll take any questions right now. Like I said, it's a very quick overview because you know what? We've tried to make it as simple as possible. You'd be really, really surprised how many people out there, how many companies out there try to overcomplicate really what you can do with the, with a platform. And the thing is that give it a shot, give it a go. We give you some sample devices to work with. I actually have a larger webinar online that we can share it afterwards. You have all of the actual integration instructions and things here. I would also recommend going to our academy. So if you need to, we also have a learning academy for everybody to utilize around this. And as stated, if you ever want to reach out to me at any time, my name is Bill Manning. I'd be more than happy to have this discussion, but, do me a favor, go ahead, try it out, give it a go. We've had a lot of really cool, pleasant surprises from customers that have come back to us and stated, we didn't think it was gonna be that powerful, but you've actually blown our minds. So this is what JFrog Connect does. By the way, just at the end, we really, really, really appreciate, everything that you guys are doing and you guys are attending. So please take some time really quick to go ahead and, scan this. We will be actually doing a drawing I think it's first week of May, I think is when it's going to be, or we'll actually be doing the drawing itself. But like I stated, the thing is JFrog, we care really deeply about this community and stuff like that. So I want to make sure that you understand how we, really, really, truly appreciate you guys. And we would love, love, love all the feedback and stuff. It says, let's see here. Thank you. How do you compare JFrog Connect with IoT services like Azure and AWS? That's a very good question, right? And the reason, and here's the thing, is those are good, solid platforms. They do definitely, you can actually utilize some of the pieces from Azure and from AWS if you wanted to as part of your process flow. Ours is a little bit different though, because we actually, since we are as a company agnostic to things like where you host us, right? I mean, the thing is like our solution, like we even have they call it a SaaS solution. Ours is managed. You can actually say, I want an Azure, AWS, GCP. You can have your own data center. You know what I mean? Like the thing is that with us, you're not stuck to a single platform. And that's actually one of the problems that we see with a lot of companies these days. Yeah, solid platforms from AWS and Azure, but they do have their pitfalls. And once you get into that ecosystem, you're kind of locked into it. And when you try to pull away, it's really hard. Where if you're using our platform, you can switch all those pieces behind the scenes and we adjust to it, right? The thing is that our solution is an end-to-end solution. And in this case, the endpoint just happens to be JFrog Connect, but we have everything else before it, which I really highly recommend. We've protected so many companies, like we're a CNA and things like that too. Not sure when we anticipate the Windows, the IoT, it doesn't scan. Let me see if I can get, oh, that's interesting. Let me try scanning it myself, but I don't know. I think I'm not sure exactly when it's happening, but let me see here. By the way, I'm also trying to scan into it. Oh, I got in. I was able to just scan on my phone. So let me see if I think my cohort here actually might have sent me a link to it. Yeah, it does. All right. Let me see if I can get a link to you guys on this one. But yes, it should scan. I just did it. So there should be a survey here from SurveyMonkey. Let me see if I can copy that and paste it in. Give me a minute. I'm actually sending it to Julie, and then I'm going to be sending it back to you guys because I needed some way to transfer it off my phone. So here it is here. If you guys want to enter, here is the actual, there you go. So if you click on that link I just put in there, it should come up with this, right? So just a quick SurveyMonkey on this stuff. And there we go. Let's go back. I know there was another question. So I'm not sure exactly when the IoT stuff is coming, by the way, for Windows. I know we've talked about it. I get an answer. We'll probably have an answer for that fairly soon. We'll make an announcement about it. I don't know what I can say and what I can't say. My product teams have a tendency to get mad at me because I like to talk about things before they come out, because I'm a little excited about it. All right. Any other questions from anybody here? All right. Well, thank you guys so much. Truly appreciate all of you. You all be safe, be wonderful, be well. Have a fantastic day. Hope to see you guys in the verse. And if you have any, we do a lot of talks and stuff like that. I have a lot of those coming up. Love to, if you see me, approach me, say hi. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. Really appreciate all of you. You guys are awesome. Keep up the good work, everyone. Cheers.
Thanks so
Natalie?
much, Bill. Thank you for a
I'll
wonderful
stop sharing.
presentation. As a
Thank you so much
reminder,
for having me.
oh, of course. And as a reminder to everyone, Riot hosts Lunch and Learns weekly on Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. You can find a list of our Lunch and Learns on Meetup where you registered for this event. This event was recorded and will be posted to Riot's YouTube channel and the Meetup page where you registered for this event. Thank you all for joining today. I hope everyone has a great rest of their day.
Cheers, everyone.